Good evening and welcome to this evening's Cabinet meeting on Tuesday the 18th of November. My name is Councillor David Thomas, leader of the Council. So we're going to start off with a little bit of housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire alarm this evening, so should the alarm sound, please exit via the nearest exit and gather in the car park next to the library. Please ask that all mobile phones and electronic devices are turned to silent and also, as importantly, not placed near the microphone stations. Please note that this evening we are using hybrid meeting arrangements with officers and councillors who are not members of the Cabinet having the option to join the meeting via Zoom. We are also live streaming this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel to encourage more people to engage in our public meetings. Can I please remind everyone to use their microphones when speaking and turn them off when finished. Anyone attending the meeting remotely must use their raise hand function when they wish to speak and to declare any interest at the appropriate time. If anyone attending the meeting remotely loses connection, the meeting will continue and you will have the option to follow the meeting via the YouTube live stream. I would like to inform all those present that urgent item 4A, nomination to list the Edge in Brixham and the Monastery in Paignton as assets of community value, which were both recommended for refusal, has been deferred. It has become clear to me that it is right to permit additional time for submissions of evidence to be made before decisions are made on the nominations for registration of assets of community value in respect of the Edge and the Monastery. As such, I have made a decision to defer these items from consideration at Cabinet today, and they will be rescheduled for Cabinet on the 16th of December. I have also decided to vary the order of business on the agenda. I will be taking item 6, Torbay Council's proposal for local government reorganisation, at the end of the meeting, followed by the remaining urgent item 4B, nomination to list Plainmoor Football Stadium as an asset of community value. Whilst I recognise that local government reorganisation is important, we do have a council meeting on Thursday to solely consider this topic. Therefore, in order to give the other equally important items on tonight's agenda the full attention that they deserve, I have moved item 6 and item 4B, urgent item 4B, to the end. So, we open the meeting with apologies.
Chair, we have an apology from Councillor Billings from the physical room. He is in the virtual room, but will not participate as a Cabinet member today.
Thank you very much. And to confirm as a correct record, the minutes of the Cabinet of the 16th of September. So moved from the Chair.
Seconded by me. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Item 3, disclosure of interests. If any member has a pecuniary or a non-pecuniary interest, could you please declare that at this point? Thank you. None noted. Urgent items, 2 urgent items. A was the nomination to list the Edge, Brixham and the Monastery Paignton as assets of community value, recommended for refusal. And B, nomination to list Plainmoor Football Stadium as an asset of community value. As already stated, the Cabinet will consider these items, or at least item 4B, at the end of the agenda. So we're moving into item 7. The review of Council Tax Support Scheme 26-27. Councillor Tyerman.
Thank you, Chair. We have to consider any changes to the Council Tax Support Scheme. I'm getting an echo. Is it sounding all right to everybody else? Okay. Every year, and this is the time of year we do that. Cabinet is considering here a report for a change that will be brought to the council meeting in December, as it is a council decision to make such a change. The change is fairly simple that we are proposing this year, and that is to increase the level of support that is provided through the scheme to some of our single parent families. At the moment, we are, I think, the only council in Devon, although there certainly are some elsewhere in the country, that give a support level that appears lower to single parent families than to couples with families. I am proposing that we eliminate that and effectively combine those two bands that have been in the past operated by Torbay into a single band, and that will be the band that is currently used for couples with children, with families. There will be a cost to the council of that. It's difficult to tell exactly what that cost will be because it will enable some people who have previously not been able to get support in the future. And until those people apply, we cannot tell how many there will be. It will be quite a useful level of additional support for the families that are affected. It will move most of those that are on the lowest band at the moment, receiving 20% support to the next band up, and the next band will move up. Everybody will effectively move up a band, but of course the people getting the highest level will still only get the highest level. So it's moving more people, more families into a higher level of support. This went out to consultation. It got a good response from consultation and a positive response from consultation. Most of the people responding, or a majority of the people responding, felt that this was the right thing to do, supporting the proposal put forward. And I think it interesting to just note, in particular, the response we had from the Treasurer to the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner for Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, who said very clearly that they would support that. They realised that that would lose them income, but they felt that that was the right thing to do. Exactly what I felt it was the right thing to do. And I know when I discussed this with Cabinet before we went out to consultation, that was the general consensus. So this is a proposal I will be putting to Council at the coming meeting to make the changes as scripted and identified here. Do you want me to read them out? I'm sure we've all read them.
I think for reference, because there are two sections, one is a council decision and one is a cabinet decision, I think it would be worth just reiterating what that decision is.
Okay. The recommendation here is that the council be recommended to amend the council tax support scheme for 2026-27 as follows. Financial support for some of our working age households within our community is increased by aligning the income bands that allocate council tax support discounts for single parents with couples that have children. By making this change, it will help alleviate the cumulative effect of welfare cuts and rising household costs. Income bands will also be increased by the September 2025 Consumer Price Index inflation rate at 3.8%. And that subject to Council making that decision, that Cabinet notes that all income-banded council tax support schemes in Devon have combined income bands for single parents, and for comparisons with other council tax schemes, you can see the information in Appendix 2. The Exceptional Hardship Fund will continue at £100,000. That's proved, as an aside, that has proved at adequate level to support the need over the past couple of years, so it can be retained at that level. We ask Cabinet to note that pension age households will not be affected by this change, as they are part of a national scheme set by government. And finally, that Cabinet gives delegated authority to the Director of Finance in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Housing and Finance, to make any further adjustments required to the Exceptional Hardship Policy and Fund and the Vulnerable Policy.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. I'm happy to second that one from the Chair. I think you've kind of put everything there on the table. And I will invite the Shadow Cabinet Member, Councillor Cowell, for any comments or questions that he may have.
Thank you, Chair. It's a welcome step forward. It's another slight improvement to the council tax support scheme that we have here in Torbay. But I urge colleagues and the Cabinet to still try to move towards an increase in the threshold. The maximum currently, I think, is 75%. Moving it and edging it upwards will actually help even more of our families in Torbay who are suffering financial hardship. But as far as the proposals tonight, then it has my support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much. And when we discuss LGR, I look forward to the Police and Crime Commissioner's views on that being vocalised loudly as well. But just on this item, I would like to echo Councillor Cowell's calls for the overall amount to have been increased. That's a disappointment that it's not happening on this one. It's at 75%, and it would have been nice to have seen that go to 80%. Of course, for people of pensionable age who have an income that's very low and they qualify for the equivalent benefit, they receive 100% council tax relief. So there is an inequity between the generations, which is not right. So I would just urge the administration to move in that direction in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. No virtual hands. Any comments from around the Cabinet table? In which case I will move back to Councillor Tyman to sum up.
I think I'm happy to go to the vote. We'll be talking about this at council meeting, I'm sure, in more detail in a few weeks' time.
Thank you very much indeed. So all those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8 and staying with Councillor Tyman, we move on to the Budget Monitoring Revenue and Capital Outturn 25-26 Quarter 2. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. This item comes up every quarter, quarterly report. It's discussed significantly at overview and scrutiny. I think if members recall, there was a long discussion at overview and scrutiny a few weeks ago on this, and particularly focusing on the current increase in the costs of children's services placements, particularly placements. And I think that we all recognise in doing that a lot of work is going on and needs to continue to go on to address that cost increase best we can. However, there were no recommendations from overview and scrutiny to that regard, beyond the scrutiny board expressing its concerns about what we were seeing, and therefore this report, the revenue side of this report for Cabinet today, is just to note the forecast revenue outturn position and amendments made in the is to note the revenue side. On the capital side, we do have to take forward a proposal to council to put some extra items into the capital programme. Those items, I think again, there were no recommendations that came out from scrutiny. Most of those are reflecting decisions that have been made already by council on a number of housing items, reflecting elsewhere the allocation of grant monies and none of those impact upon additional borrowing and therefore impact upon additional cost carried forward for the council. However, therefore, the recommendation tonight is that Cabinet notes the forecast revenue outturn position and amendments made to the published 2025-26 Capital Investment Plan and recommends to Council that Council approves the revisions to the Capital Investment Plan as set out in Appendix 1 of the submitted report. I'm happy to take any questions that come out from the capital side and the list of additions to the capital plan.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to second this one from the chair and would just remind members that Appendix 2 of this document is exempt. So if you want to go into any of the details, we would need to go into Part 2 if you wanted to talk about Appendix 2. So I will open up and invite Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. I'm delighted to see that the new technology park, tech park, is going through. It's gone through the Capital and Growth Board. Now we see it on the capital programme. And it is recommended that we look at buying a building near the Epic Centre and land at White Rock. And this gives us the opportunity to expand our provision for the high-tech sector in the Bay. Clearly, these are highly paid jobs, and the more we can expand that technology offer in the Bay, the better for those going through college, those going through South Devon College to take up the places in those very, very high-tech companies. We've got the money from government, as you will see from the papers that are not exempt, just over £6 million from the government Levelling Up Fund. And Epic has proved to be a great success, and it is completely full, and we now have businesses that wish to expand and leave Epic, and that is why we put into government the bid for the money so that we could expand. And of course, as people move out of Epic, it then gives more space for new technology companies to move in, whether they're new startups, small or medium-sized companies that then can go into the buildings which will be near Epic. So it's a good news story. It's showing that we are supporting our high-tech sector in the Bay. And I'm glad that it's seen its way into this report. So thank you very much to Councillor Timon.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move outside of the Cabinet table to the Shadow Cabinet Member, Councillor Cowell. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And there was an extensive conversation at overview and scrutiny around the revenue, particularly around children's services and the high costs of placements, which some of the figures were quite alarming. But not surprising to those of us who have been following these matters for a number of years. What was of concern was the potential pace at delivery of a children's home operated by the council. We were assured at that meeting that I think the chief executive was making sure that she was keeping the foot on the accelerator to maximise the creation of that home, notwithstanding some of the hoops that the Director of Children's Services and her team will have to jump through to actually deliver that. But I think it's absolutely essential that it remains of critical focus. There wasn't a lot of conversation about the capital programme at overview and scrutiny. And whilst I absolutely welcome the support for the funding of the tech park, it's absolutely essential to continue to send that message to that sector that we do value the high tech. They are the ones that can provide the added value jobs that can create the conditions we would hope to encourage people to either move in, but more importantly for our residents to stay in Torbay and enjoy the benefits that we all cherish. I think at the next overview and scrutiny, I will be asking the Chair that we actually make sure that we spend some time focusing on the capital programme. I do see some increases in budget for some of the regeneration programmes such as Union Square and Strand, with outlined business cases which so far are invisible to many of us, and hopefully we'll start getting some clarity on just how far we are towards actually making those business cases add up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Not seeing any further hands, so we'll come back inside the Cabinet. Councillor Bye.
Thank you. And in part, in response to Councillor Cowell, very pleased to see on page 78 of the report where it says additions to the capital plan under the heading of schools capital programme, absolutely almost £500,000 going in to a children's home proposal to alleviate the budget pressures that were identified because of the overspend on placements at the overview and scrutiny meeting. Also a similar sum, almost exactly the same, for the Mayfield College relocation, doing all that we can absolutely for special children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. So looking at the capital plan, be more than happy for that to be discussed in greater depth next time, but we are moving forward with the children's home. We are moving forward to support children with SEND. And in addition to the proposal for our own children's home, we are working separately with an independent provider. Of course, that doesn't appear on this because it's their funds to work with an independent provider also to provide a further children's home in the Bay. So hopefully that will reassure Councillor Cowell and all colleagues that we're moving at pace to do what we can to alleviate the issues in terms of placements for children. And we'll be coming on to that in 2 further reports later this evening.
Thank you very much indeed. Before I hand back to Councillor Timon to sum up, I would just also like to pick up on that investment in the high-tech cluster. We mustn't forget that just down the road in Plymouth, they've just been appointed with a £4.4 billion investment into the Plymouth dockyard, looking at autonomous vehicles, everything from land, air and sea. And surprise, surprise, what's one of the biggest things that they require to make all of this stuff work is photonics and electronics. And where do they have an abundance of people with those skills already in this area is Torbay. So absolutely fantastic and delighted to see that additional investment going in, which ultimately helps the wider region. Okay, let's move back to Councillor Timon.
I'm perfectly happy to go to the vote on this. Again, we'll be discussing the same item at Council in 2 or 3 weeks' time.
Thank you very much indeed. So moving to the vote, all those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. We move now across to item 9, which is the Torbay Waste Transfer Station. And I'm going to invite Councillor Billings to give us the whole of the background on this. Now, the reality is Councillor Billing is not able to vote or propose or second anything this evening. However, it's clearly his portfolio. He's suffering from a heavy cold this evening and probably in the best place as none of us wanted it. So we'll pass over to Councillor Billings and then at the end of the presentation, we will propose and second in the room. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies, colleagues, for not being physically with you tonight, but I thought it was in the best interests of avoiding you all catching whatever I've picked up. So you have before you a full report at page 94 of the agenda papers, and also recently uploaded to the portal is a map showing the site that we're referring to for the CPO in edged red, alongside the existing waste transfer site edged yellow. So in summary, the report sets out there's a need for the expansion of the existing household waste recycling centre. That's because we need more space for recycling as per paragraph 2.2. We need more space to comply with health and safety as per paragraph 2.3. We need to reduce our disposal costs through sorting waste as well as we can, paragraph 2.4, and we need to comply with our obligations under various environmental permits, at paragraph 2.5. That said, there's a lot of logic in our existing site location. The existing HWRC is strategically located to serve the whole of the bay. It's relatively central for all of Torquay, Paignton and Brixham, and is located in an industrial area that's a suitable broad base for a waste transfer station. The existing HWRC is landlocked on 3 sides, however. So if we are looking to expand our existing facilities, there is really only one option, and that's on the 4th side, going onto land which was previously a former quarry, but which has subsequently been filled. And so if we are to expand our existing waste transfer station, that would clearly make the most sensible, best use of available land. And the report sets out that there's a clear preference for a negotiated sale as per paragraph 2.8, but the CPO we've referred to in the report is merely a backstop should a negotiated sale not be able to be completed, recognising the importance of providing a proper waste disposal service for the needs of the residents of Torbay. So to summarise the recommendations as printed on page 97, they are first at 3.1 to delegate authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with the portfolio holder, which is myself and the Section 151 officer, to purchase the site either by negotiation or a compulsory purchase. And then at paragraph 3.2 is a recommendation to delegate to the Section 151 officer the expenditure necessary to complete the purchase. And I would highlight, Chair, in paragraph 3.2, in the recommendation rather, in paragraph 3.1 triple I in the 4th line on page 97, we just need to delete the word street. I think that's a typo that's picked up in there. Happy to answer any questions, but hopefully that provides a summary for your discussions in Cabinet.
Thank you very much indeed. So formally putting this on the table, I move to Councillor Timon to see if he'd be happy to propose.
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to propose this. I think it's been made clear to us as a council that we need to improve our facilities here. I feel it's slightly unusual to come to Cabinet and to recommend onto Council that we make a purchase without any indication of the amount for purchasing the land and without a clear indication of how much borrowing there might be. Whatever borrowing is going to take place under this scheme will have to be budgeted for and afforded by by Swissco, and from that in their charging through to us as a council. But the main cost of developing this and the main cost of borrowing will ultimately be in what we put on that site rather than just acquiring the site. This is not therefore a significant element of the total, but we need that flexibility at this stage. So subject to those comments, I'm happy to make this proposal as written in the report on page 97.
Thank you very much indeed. And moving to Councillor Jackie Thomas, to see if you can second this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't feel I've got any more to add to what's already been said, but happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move outside of the Cabinet table, first of all, to Councillor Fox. Any comments or questions, Councillor? Thank you very much indeed. Let's move across to Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've only got one brief comment, which is that I was slightly surprised that, given that we were looking at expanding the site, that as part of this we weren't considering having, as part of the solution, a small site in Torquay, because for some parts of Torquay, such as parts of my ward, driving to central Paignton is not actually that logical. It would actually be more logical to be able to go to Newton Abbot because that's nearer. And that is one often complaint that I get on the doorsteps, is people having to schlep all the way to Paignton when it's not the most convenient. So I was just slightly surprised that there wasn't any consideration to developing a satellite site for recycling in Torquay as well, or indeed doing a deal with Devon County Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cowell.
Thank you. And whilst I understand the logic of needing to expand the particular site, I also share those concerns raised by Councillor Long. As somebody who lives in Torquay, it is quite often easier to get to Newton Abbot. But I must say the booking system does help considerably in terms of being able to organise taking waste to Yalberton. Like Councillor Timon, I do have concerns when I see these proposals come forward and there's no business case or costs associated with it. We don't even have a part 2 paper which may be indicative of the likely costs, so we can understand how that would feed into the overall project, because obviously we can't build a new recycling facility or extend the existing one if we haven't got the land, and the land is probably going to be the lowest part of the costs of the overall project. So I do have some of those concerns, because I think it's likely to be funded through prudential borrowing, and you'd like to think that the savings from not having to send waste and landfill down to Plymouth because we can recycle more will actually help fund the project. I'm also disappointed that I was promised a briefing along with other shadow cabinet members on this project, and I think time has slipped by and that briefing never came forward. But overall, the principle of expanding the Yalberton site is something that I would support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move back to the Cabinet table. I don't think there's any further comments or questions from the Cabinet, so I'm going to move straight to Councillor Billings to provide some reply to those points that were made.
Thank you, Chair. As colleagues have acknowledged, the actual land values of any expansion is the lowest component. It's what's built on it and the facilities that are, as I understand it, having discussed the indicative costs with officers at this stage, significantly the majority of the expenditure required. And that's why at paragraph 2.6 of the report, there's a recognition that a site adjacent to the existing HWRC would allow a phased build out, so that effectively the delivery of the expansion, here's a very large bill the council's faced with on an unexpected basis. And I would sort of just pause to reflect that to a certain extent, as I understand it and as the report tries to set out, there is limited opportunity for us not to do this, recognising the existing facility does not have the space to meet our legal obligations. I spoke earlier about requirements for health and safety. I spoke earlier about environmental permits. Whilst the council could take a decision to accept inflated disposal costs and other matters like that, those legal obligations do provide a very needed reason why this has to be taken, and hence the compulsory purchase option should a negotiated solution not follow through. In relation to the very sensible question that was raised by one of my colleagues, which was the opportunity to look at other sites in Torbay, I have seen
Sorry, Councillor Billings, do you want
that colleagues have prepared?
Sorry, Councillor, maybe if you could turn the camera off. We are struggling to hear you in the room. So if you're able to turn the camera off and try the pick up from the final paragraph.
I have, in relation to what my colleague was saying in relation to the alternative options and having a satellite facility in Torquay, I'm aware of an option.
I'm sorry. We're not able to. We're not able to hear you at that point. So I'm going to move on. Maybe if you want to dial back in a moment, maybe you'll get a better line. Certainly it is breaking up at that point, Councillor, so I do apologise for that. So I will move to the vote on item 9. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Staying in the room then, and moving on to item 10, which is the compulsory purchase order delegation for Union Square and the Strand. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. This is all about the compulsory purchase orders for Union Square and the Strand, as you quite rightly say. The decision was made in December 24 to, in principle, to secure the land by means of compulsory purchase orders, CPOs. The reason for bringing it back is to make it very clear that the decision today takes it from principle to reconfirm that we will do compulsory purchase orders on those 2 locations. As I said when it went through in December 24, we hope that we will not have to use CPO orders to acquire the properties. And so far, the team, and I must congratulate David Carter and his team for all the hard work they've done in talking to establishments both in the Strand and Union Square to try and resolve the purchase of those properties without going through the process of CPOs. As we all know, Mr. Chairman, CPOs can take a long time, and very often at the end no one wins. Therefore, it's much better if we can do it through negotiations. As you know, Union Square and the Strand are major planks of our regeneration projects, both at the upper end of Torquay, where we're looking to put over 100 flats in there, to have the NHS and other mixed use for there. And at the Strand, we're looking to have a 4-star hotel with everything that goes with it. So it is important that these projects continue at pace, and that's why we have to have a CPO sitting behind us that we can use if we have to. So I hope everyone will support it. I don't intend to read out the long recommendations, but they can be found on page 108. So Union Square 3.1, 3.2, and the Strand 3.3 and 3.4. So I hope that it will get the support of the Cabinet today. It is a bit of a tidying up exercise because we did debate it in December 24, but it's wise that we do that, and that's a recommendation from our officers. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Tyerman, busy man this evening.
Yes, happy to second that, the proposal that's just been made by Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much indeed. Invite Councillor Fox as the Shadow Cabinet member for any comments or questions, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think having what sometimes will be referred to as a friendly CPO in the background is just a very important part of all of this, and therefore got no further comments.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Long.
I have an apology to Councillor Law for nearly choking on my glass of water here when Councillor Lewis referred to at pace. I think maybe he was referring to snail's pace. Given that we have promised by this administration delivery, that was the mantra, and the CPO was debated in December 2024 and it's now November 2025, and according to the report negotiations are still ongoing. There doesn't seem to be much delivery going on. Thank you.
Any further comments? My apologies. Councillor Law.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So my understanding is that proposed Strand development is actually barely viable, and hence the need to make the proposed development so large and the need to demolish such a large part of our beautiful harbour conservation area. However, We have not yet seen a business case, so it's hard to know whether the compulsory purchases of businesses and people's homes in this area are at all justified. The section on climate change in the report is really interesting, as there's nothing about climate, but it does talk about the need for the CPO process to, and I quote, require the council to demonstrate that the implementation of the scheme is unlikely to be blocked by any physical or legal impediments. This includes the need for planning permission. Well, I would suggest that that little matter of planning permission is not a foregone conclusion when the proposal includes the demolition of the surviving Georgian origins of our town centre from 1805 in a conservation area. And of course, there's also that matter of the business case that demonstrates that there is a need for yet another hotel with units beneath in this area, especially when the units beneath the hotel just around the corner have now remained empty and boarded up for several years. Surely, before you start to threaten to compulsory purchase people's homes, you should be sure that the proposal is viable and can overcome the planning restraints and protections that are very real. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Chair. And it's around about, whilst we all support the regeneration of Torquay Town Centre and the harbour, it was us who actually made sure that we purchased the old Debenhams building to make sure that it wasn't land banked by a potential private developer, so it would act as the catalyst for regeneration. It was then decided that that development site needed to be expanded further along the Strand, probably to try to build a quantum to make it viable. Well, as Councillor Laws just pointed out, and I alluded to earlier in the budget outturn agenda item, we haven't seen any business cases. We are woefully in the dark about how this administration is spending the Bay's money. Now, whilst we support it, it doesn't mean to say it's a blank cheque. And my fear is that whilst the eventual planning permission once approved, and we don't know, as Councillor Law suggests, when that may or may not happen, the site will be sold off to the highest bidder. And we must ensure that that doesn't happen at all costs, because whilst Crossways rotted and deteriorated for all of those years, we don't want that on the prime location of Torquay Harbour side. So I am concerned about the costs from a revenue point of view of the development of CPOs. This is the third CPO we'll be talking about tonight on 3 different projects. And it's actually potentially a revenue cost to our legal team and others that once a project is signed off and approved could be capitalised, but if that doesn't happen, then we would have invested some revenue that we can ill afford on speculation. And I am concerned about the lack of transparency to the opposition on these capital programmes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Any further comments? In which case we will move across back to Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Everything's been going well up until now. I'm not going to rise to the bait, Councillor Long, but I think we have shown that we are delivering. Yes, Crossways will be built next year. Yes, we are moving forward with a number of projects, probably the biggest number of projects in the history of Torbay. We won't deliver them overnight. We've always said that. It will take time to deliver these projects, but we are determined to deliver them. The Debenhams site was bought by the previous administration. They put a scheme forward for 14 apartments. It was not viable. Other buildings along from the Debenhams site came up for sale, and they were on the market. We thought it was prudent to buy those to make the site bigger and to make that site of the Strand game-changing for the people of Torbay and the visitors. putting 14 apartments on the Debenham site, quite frankly, would not have had the game changing that we're now seeing. We have got keen interest from a number of four-star hotels who wish to go into the site. And unless Councillor Cowell and others are experts on marketing and the sale of hotels, our partners are engaged with an expert in London, an expert in hotels and the hospitality. And they have said that it is viable to have a hotel there. If it wasn't viable, we wouldn't have a number of hotels are very, very keen to move into Torquay. As far as planning permission is concerned, Councillor Law, I hope they won't class that as predetermined, but it will take its course through the planning committee. You know, our partners, as I've just said, have told us that it is viable, that accommodation, residential, would not be viable, but a hotel would be viable. We're pressing ahead. I won't go through all the other sites that we're doing, like the pavilion that's been empty for years, and we did the deal with MDL. So delivering, we are. We're delivering for the pavilion, we're delivering for Union Square, we're delivering for Debenhams and the Strand, and we're delivering in Paignton, which I'll come on to a different item on the agenda. So I reckon it's a good news story. Hopefully, going back to the motion on the table, hopefully we won't have to use the CPOs, but if we do have to use them, we will have to use them to deliver. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. And on that note, I will move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. So, on to something a little easier. Item 11, Paignton Town Centre Place Vision. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I mean, this fits in nicely about delivering, doesn't it? This vision carries on from the one that I brought here not so many weeks ago, which was the Torquay vision, and we will have the Brixham Village. Village. I was looking at Councillor By, and he was smiling because of the vision. I got confused, yes. But this follows on from the Torquay vision, and we've got the Brixham one, which will come up probably in December. This is a document which is promoting Paignton. As I said at the last one, with the Torquay one, it's not a planning document, it's promoting Paignton to the outside world, sharing we are serious about the regeneration of Paignton. And there is a lot going on in Paignton already. But Rome wasn't made in a day, and Paignton won't be changed in a day. But there are exciting regeneration projects taking place. And as I said on the last subject, we have to be patient. I understand that the development in Plymouth and Exeter, the shopping centres, took 25 years in the planning. Hopefully it won't take that long, but this is a true vision for Paignton. The Picture House, talk about delivering. The Picture House will be delivered and opened next year. Work has started on Crossways, and hopefully we'll be on site building that in the first half of next year. Victoria Square is taking shape. We've demolished what we can, formed it as a car park, and plans are going ahead for 200 residential units on that site. Old Way, again, delivering. Old Way, putting scaffolding over, all these years that nothing's happened in Old Way. We managed to get money from government, £8 million. We put £1 million of Torbay Council money into it. We are getting there. It's going to take time, but the scaffolding's there. We're trying to make it wind and watertight, repair the doors, the windows, again, delivering. Paignton Harbour, the north side has been transformed with harbour lights, mollies. We've got to look at the southern side of the harbour. We want to make that and see it as a water sports hub for Paignton, covering the whole of Torbay, with sailing, paddle boarding, etc. Exciting times for Paignton. 2 new hotels have opened and apparently are doing extremely well. We've got the flood defence starting. I was down there today. Really exciting what we're doing there, both Paignton and Preston. Now I come on to Station Square, Paignton Gateway. Yes, we had to put it on hold. Why did we put it on hold? Because there are exciting things taking place, a lot going on in that area. And it was a difficult decision to put it on hold, but the right one. If we had dug up that road and done all the changes that were in place and then had to redo it in 18 months, 2 years' time, we would not have been forgiven. We are talking to GWR about their car park to see if we can link their car park with our car park in Station Lane, creating a real site where we can have a multi-storey car park, not on the seafront, not near the seafront, but just behind, so that people can park safely. Stagecoach have informed us that the bus terminal in Paignton is too large, and they wish to change the site so it's not as big. Again, another opportunity for us to look to see if we can put a supermarket in the centre of Paignton and flats above it. Really exciting times. The building opposite the station, 6271 Victoria Street, we're talking to them. We've got to get that fixed. It's no good spending money in Paignton if we don't get the fundamentals right. It's owned by a private operator. We are in discussions with them to do up the building and sort that out. It's been derelict for far too long. The public realm in Station Square will happen, but it'll all work as part of that regeneration. It is really exciting times for Paignton, and we've taken the community with us at every step. So I hope we will get the full support of the Cabinet on this going forward. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would say quite simply to you and colleagues that Paignton is the future. And it is the town with the most significant housing growth in the Bay and an absolutely brilliant college. And already, as Councillor Lewis has mentioned, so much is going on in the town and so much that we can be proud of. So we already have the library that is so much more than a library, a theatre that is going from strength to strength, the steam railway, and I'm looking forward to my ride there very, very soon indeed. We have a bustling transport hub, an improved harbour, the new hotels, the View Cinema, the play park. But it needs more, and absolutely it needs a vision for the future to encourage investment, and I would say in particular private investment. So a successful vision will be what drives the regeneration through private investment, hopefully to make a further difference in the way that private investment has made such a difference around Brixham Harbour and Middle Street in Brixham, for example, and in Torwood Street and around the harbour in Torquay. The projects I think that we can be proud of, the waterfront regeneration, you called it. I didn't think we were allowed to call it the Sea Defence Scheme anymore. I know it says that in here, but nor to you, indeed, nor to you. It is so much more than a Sea Defence Scheme. When you see the diagrams or you see the illustrations, it will absolutely transform the experience for visitors and residents in Paignton. It looks so very attractive, but absolutely complement all that makes Paignton special. I'm delighted as a Paintonian to see the historic cinema being brought back to life with significant support from this council, working with the voluntary and community sector, with the trust there. Taken to so many cinema screenings by my dear late mum, and always late, and always having to sit through the next showing so that we would catch up with what had happened at the beginning, because we always turned up late and missed the beginning. So I'm absolutely thrilled to see that is now taking shape. Old Way, where I walked often as a child, Crossways cleared, and delighted to think that that's going to be underway. But this is to encourage investment. It's an advertisement to put Paignton on the map. Absolutely well done, all those involved with it, and I'm sure it will reap dividends. So delighted to second.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move outside of the Cabinet table and invite Councillor Fox for any comments or questions you may have, sir.
Chair, thank you again. I'm slightly concerned about any constriction with the bus station. We're obviously talking about growth, more housing growth in Paignton, as Councillor Byers said. That's important. And part of that growth must be reflected in public transport provision. And I would say especially with buses. And I think we've therefore got to be careful that we don't restrict the growth of bus service in the future by a somewhat turned down or honed down bus station. So I do sort of sound a note of caution there. We're going to be coming on in sometime later this evening and talk about the local plan, and obviously important that the different documents, but they have to be in line with each other. And obviously one of the key things that we're looking at is more brownfield regeneration, and that includes Paignton very much so. I just hope that we're going to be seeing a reflection of the local plan in terms of its housing numbers. I'll talk more about this hopefully when we get on to the local plan, but there just needs to be the two documents need to be speaking to each other positively. I'll put it like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Let's go to the virtual room. Councillor Carter.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. I'm having a few IT issues here.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
You can? Oh, good. I'm looking at the plan. There are some exciting things going on in there. And, I'm pleased to see some of the things are going to be moved on, and I'm hoping that that does happen. I do have a few issues with the parking part, that I'm hoping that you're not going to go and build on all the car parks before building somewhere for the cars to park. Do you know what I mean? Because it looks like you're building on Crossways, you're building on Victoria Square, and then where are those cars going to go? So I'd like to know when you're thinking of building multi-storey, or where the car parking is going to be, because we don't want to drive people out of Paignton. And the other thing I have an issue with is the harbour, the south side. It refers on one of your pages to residential there, as well as the businesses and other water sports and things. It says residential. I have spoken to some of the groups down there, and I've spoken to them last week as well, and they are against any residential being down there. It does not mix with water sports or with the youth and young people and the noise down there when all the groups are getting together. So I do worry about that, and they also ask if they could consult on the harbour, if you could have a consultation with them about how that harbour is going to go forward, and the residential part they do not want. So I ask that question, if you're going to consult with them, please.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll move across to Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to assist the discussions with my own comments in relation to a question raised by Councillor Fox. Certainly, Councillor, the functional need that Stagecoach has for a bus terminal in Paignton has changed somewhat following the delivery by this administration of the 100% electric bus fleet, the 55 buses that Stagecoach will be bringing on stream, which are all electric. They will need to operate much more closely out of the main Torquay bus station facility, which will have all of the charging facilities on that. And so some of the routes and the functional way that buses are going to be proceeding around the bay will have changed accordingly from that. And that will have driven some of the comments that Councillor Lewis referred to earlier in relation to Stagecoach having a lower functional need in terms of the overall land area that the Paignton facility covers. That doesn't in any way detract from the number of routes that go into and out of it, but it's simply an operational change in relation to how many buses are on site at any one point in time. In relation to the subsequent query that was raised by Councillor Carter, I think from my perspective as the cabinet member responsible for parking, I can give an assurance that clearly we won't be building on all of the car parks without a place for cars to park. What's shown in this document is an overall vision, an overall strategic destination. Clearly, how we get there is a phased approach with things coming forward in the logical order to continue the improvements in the economic regeneration that we've already started. Thanks, Chair. I think that covers the points I wanted to.
Thank you very much indeed. Before I hand back to Councillor Lewis, I would remind members that this is not a planning document. This is actually a vision document. We've spoken about it before, and there is a real concern that members confuse this to be a planning document. It is absolutely not. When you cast your eye across it, you'll see maps, you'll see the way that you would expect a planning document to be laid out as a design and access statement. But this is not a planning document, it is a vision document. It's important to know that the two are separate. Before I hand back, I've just seen Councillor Cowell's hand, so my apologies. Sorry, Councillor Long, thank you.
I'm pleased that you, Chair, have actually confirmed and re-emphasised that this is not a planning document, it's a vision document. And I seem to recall one of those in years gone by. So a vision document is not a planning document, and it's most certainly not a delivery document. And we hear that this is a vision for Paignton. As we heard, it was a vision for Torquay, and next month it'll be Brixham's turn. But whose vision is it? Because from the feedback I've had from Torquay and in Paignton is that the community seem to have been forgotten. Now, while some of this has been built around some of the neighbourhood plan documents which are out of date and need refreshing. The world has moved on from when they were approved in 2019. There's been very little bottom-up approach to how people in Paignton and Torquay and Brixham wish to see their town evolve over the next 20 years. And I've noticed that the definition of delivery in Torbay is now actually demolition, because we seem to be demolishing a lot of stuff without actually having the business cases in place to rebuild and repurpose those sites. We hear about the south side of Paignton Harbour, and you won't be surprised that I absolutely welcome the investment and opportunity to actually make that something of a water sports hub, not just for, certainly for Paignton, but maybe for the wider bay. But what I'm worried about is when I hear about some of the other visions for the south side, which actually sound to me like the gentrification of Paignton Harbour, the jewel in Paignton's crown. And then we hear about 62 to 70. I don't think it went across to 71. You know, we were talking about that in our days and the challenges, and we received so much criticism from the then opposition about lack of progress on it. Well, it's 2025, 2.5 years after this administration came into place, and we still have no progress. I would remind colleagues that the Picture House was started by the previous administration, and we purchased Crossways to have the opportunity to be able to redevelop that site. Reference was made to the Harbour Lights. That opened in March 2020 with a £600,000 investment from Torbay Council, the previous administration, alongside a 90-year lease. We hear that there's some issues around the fact that some of our projects that we had initially didn't add up. Well, they didn't add up because something called Trussonomics and the Ukraine war actually led to significant increases in costs of many of those projects. We hear that Station Square, has had to be paused. It's been paused to be entered into a vision document with no firm plans. So when will Station Square be invested in? And we know that the experts view, but they seem to be very slow on that delivery. This year they've received over £2 million in payments for fees, including a figure towards Crossways, which is a project that they're not even directly involved with. But so far, we've not seen a single spade in the ground. If we want to talk about delivery, I would expect to start seeing delivery at pace in return for that £2 million investment into those experts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much indeed. And we've had really some breathless introductions to this item this evening. Lots of exciting projects mentioned. And you'd think that the people of Paignton will be all agog, when actually the reality is that all we've had is car parks being turned into car parks. And there was the promise of delivery at the dawn of this administration, and now we hear about talk of 25 years. And as Councillor Cowell mentioned, the number of the projects mentioned, like the Picture House, well, if it hadn't been for the previous administration, you wouldn't have any projects to talk about. When this item was discussed at overview and scrutiny, there was a very good discussion about the fact that Paignton has is a kind of hub or a growth area for community interest companies, CICs, and I thought that there was some interest. But before I could even follow up on that, the agenda item was published for this item for this meeting before any conversations could be had about that. So clearly there was no interest in that item. And I thought that this administration were continuing the last administration's policy of community wealth building, referencing back to the bottom up that Councillor Cowell mentioned. No vision will last, no economy will last if there is no long-lasting bottom-up economics. If those small community interest companies are not going to be nurtured and developed, then they won't last either. So that's a real missing link from this vision. And there's a constant reference to experts. And it's really depressing actually to see that actually the experts are now doing the bread and butter role of the work that this council used to do itself. So for example, I know it's referencing back to Torquay, but we had the planning application for Union Square done by the experts, when in previous days that planning application could easily have been done by the council itself, and presumably taxpayers are having to pay extra for the experts to do those things rather than the council doing it themselves. So not much delivery going on for the extra money that's being shelled out.
Okay, one or two points raised there, and we'll move back to Councillor Lewis to respond to as many as possible.
Great. Thank you very much, Chairman. It's great to have a vision that has been, everyone is so positive about. Let me answer a few questions. Councillor Fox, Stagecoach, I think Councillor Billings has explained that. They no longer want, I thought I had, they no longer want the whole of that space, if any of it. They're not going to, as far as I know, cut down on the services that they're doing. They're just going to do it differently and use the Torquay depot more than the Paignton one, which then gives us the opportunity for what you just saying, brownfield site where we can do accommodation on it, along with the Victoria Square, over 200 flats in the plans there. So we are doing what we discussed at the local plan, looking for anywhere which is a brownfield site where we can put residential use on, which then cuts down the number of residential units we have to put on greenfield sites. So we are really minded on that. But as Councillor Thomas said, this is not a planning document. It's a document to go out marketing Paignton, trying to get inward investment into Torbay. Councillor Carter talks about car parks. I don't know, I've just explained that we're looking at putting a multi-storey car park on the Great Western Railway site and expanding our site in Station Lane. Clearly, we're going to do that before we lose the parking in Victoria Square. Crossways we put into parking because clearly there is going to be probably, and it has turned out, 12 months before we get the spade in the ground. Therefore, it was prudent to have it as a car park while we wait. But we did bulldoze it. We did turn it into a car park, and next year, as I say, it will be turned into what we've seen the plans for, extra care home. Councillor Cowell, consultation. I've had more consultation in Paignton, I think, than anywhere else. And I've been part of it at community partnerships and other events where we've done it, where we've covered Victoria Square, we've covered Crossways, we've covered the harbour, we've covered all those areas. We can consult time and time again, but at some stage, you've got to bite the bullet and get on with it. And that's what we're doing. We're biting the bullet, getting on with it. And sorry to use the word again, but delivering. And we are delivering. You wouldn't expect us to be able to, within 2 years, is to demolish buildings, get planning permission, get someone interested in taking over the sites. I reckon we've done pretty well over the last 2 years to be able to do that. In fact, I think we've done more in the last 2 years than has happened in the Bay over the last 10 years. And we're not taking all the credit, and we're not being political on it, but Paignton has also seen 2 new hotels being built there, which has transformed that seafront part of Paignton. 6270, sorry, I added one number to it, 6270 is a difficult one. The leader of the council and I have been to see, I think, 2 owners now. 2 owners. I know that the team enforcement area are also on the case, but you found it difficult, we're finding it difficult. And what I said was, we've got to crack it. We can't have that building opposite the station looking the way it has done. So we're taking really strong enforcement measures now. The problem we have is that it keeps changing hands. Councillor Long, I knew it when I said it. I knew, don't mention Plymouth and Exeter, it took them 25 years. I thought, no, it's going to be taken out of context. So I thought, no, we're all friends here. They won't be taken out of context. Yeah, it took them 25 years. But as I said, we're going to do it a lot quicker than that. And we are doing it quicker than that. Some projects probably will take more time. And credit to you guys, you started it and we're delivering on it, and that's what we're doing. So I think it's a really good vision for Paignton, and we must all be looking forward to the one for Brixham coming out shortly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move on to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Just to give you a heads up, I am looking to take a break at around about 7 o'clock, but we'll see how we go with the agenda items. We will move on to item 12, which is to launch the consultation on the draft Torbay local plan 2025 to 2045. For those with planning knowledge, this is Regulation 18. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Another positive news story, the draft local plan Over the last 12 months, we've sat down in this room and gone through it as the local plan working party. And at this stage, I'd like to thank who are in the audience, as Councillor Nick Bly would say, in the cheap or expensive seats. David Pickhaver and David Edmondson. You don't have to be called David to be in the department, but it certainly helps. But I'd like to thank them and their team for all the hard work. It's not an easy task to do it. I did it when I had the portfolio 18 years ago. Councillor Thomas did it when he took over from me, and it is not an easy job. And it's not an easy job keeping everyone happy, especially members. But I think during those working parties, I would also like to thank Councillor Mike Fox and Councillor Adam Billings, who also had a great deal of input into those working parties. So I'd like to thank them for all their input. And I think mostly, well, virtually always, we got cross-party agreement of what we were doing. I think we had one vote during the past 12 months. So we were all working together to find the solution. And this is for Regulation 18. And what we're agreeing today is that this draft local plan can go out for consultation. And the consultation, we've extended it, so it'll go on until the end of January. We extended it because, of course, it is over the Christmas period. And hopefully we'll get feedback from all our partners, stakeholders, etc. And then changes will be made if needed. And then Regulation 19 will go to Cabinet and Council in July of next year for agreement. And then in December 26, submit the plan to the Secretary of State for approval. You will probably see that in the local plan, we are suggesting a target of 400 dwellings a year. This is more than we've done over the last, on average, over the last 10 years. So it will be difficult to achieve that number of 400. But it is a lot lower than the number that the government have actually dictated, which is over 900. The working party and the officers worked hard over the past 12 months looking at the brownfield sites, as Councillor Fox quite rightly said, because the more residential property we can get on brownfield sites, the less we have to put onto our greenfield sites. And I think it came out of the working party that if we were to go with the government over 900 a year, in 25 years, there would hardly be a blade of grass left in Torbay. So it's important that we try and get this through the local plan through and then get it approved by government. We will put very good cases why we think that 400 is acceptable and that why 900 is not acceptable. We believe that we have a good draft local plan, one that our residents, our businesses and other organisations can support. Hope that we get the support tonight and that we can go out for Regulation 18 consultation from tomorrow, I think. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. So I'm happy to second this from the Chair. To clarify, we'll be looking to go out to a public consultation from the 28th of November, which is next Friday, a week on Friday, if my memory, yeah, that's right, 28th until the 26th of January, so 2 months effectively. I would like to put on record my thanks to all members cross-party within the council. This is a great piece of work. It's not easy trying to pull this kind of planning document together, and I think fair play to everybody who was involved in the process. To only have a single vote on all of the options that came forward because we had consensus really does show a huge working together, and I think that has to be congratulated. There is within the document that focus on brownfields, and I think there's also a recognition that government numbers requesting 900 homes plus a year and effectively this local plan only delivering 400. Now we say only delivering 400, it's significantly more than we have delivered over previous years. But we recognise the conversation and the challenge that we'll have to have with government ultimately to get that across the line. However, at this stage, this will be an opportunity for the public to have a look at it, to let us know what they think about each of the parcels of land that are included in there, and then after all of that information comes back, there's an opportunity for us to then work up what is called Regulation 19, which we will then go out back for consultation on, and that is when the council effectively nail their colours to the mast and say these are the sites that we are looking to promote. So I would urge our community, our residents at this point, this is a consultation document. Have a look at the document, make sure you allocate a little bit of time to it, have a look through it, and please, we'll be delighted to have your feedback. And at that point, I shall open up the debate, and I will move across straight away to the Shadow Cabinet Member, Councillor Fox, who's also spent some considerable time working through this document. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep my comments brief. First of all, I would just like to follow Councillor Lewis and give my thanks to the work the officers have done. And it's been extremely hard and diligent. So thank you for that team. It's Regulation 18, so it's basically the issues and options with a chance to basically look at things again in Regulation 19. So I just think it's important that we note there's those two separate periods of consultation we're going to go through. I think it's worth saying that the inspectors who gave their advice to us in sort of semi-formally, as it were, did say to leave no stone unturned on the housing. And I believe that the working party has done that, and that 400 dwellings per year is probably the maximum realistic target, bearing in mind our really important environmental constraints and a blue substance to the east that doesn't allow much development. So we are squeezed very much with the area of outstanding natural beauty to the south and the sea to the east. It's not, and also the other environmental constraints that we have in relation to wildlife. So it's very important that we acknowledge all of that. And I for one, believe that although we're going with a lower figure, I believe it's one that will be taken sympathetically by the government. Just on the relationship with the Paignton vision, I do accept the two documents are different, but they do need to be compatible. They're both, so we've been told tonight about delivery, and I noticed on page 208 of this report on the local plan that within Paignton we're talking about a figure of 260 for brownfield regeneration. And I, for one, will not be upset. I may be in a minority of one on this, but I will not be upset if that figure is exceeded and we get even more development in Paignton. So thank you, Chair. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And a thought crossed my mind earlier today to place a bet on the administration saying how cross-party this item was going to be. And I then got caught up doing other things I never did. So I should have placed a large sum. The only other thing I wanted to say was that much has been made of the one vote that took place at the Working Party. And that was quite a controversial vote where I'm going to characterise it as some members trying to shift the development from the southern end of the bay to the northern end of the bay, where there happen to be different sets of councillors. And I'd just like to pay tribute to councillors George Darling and councillor Fox for so resolutely resisting that effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell.
Thank you. And as a member of that working party, I witnessed the extreme hard work of the officers. It's not an easy task, and we did set them some challenging challenges, which they, as expected, lived up to. It is going out for consultation. It's now the opportunity for stakeholders and such as the Torquay Neighbourhood Forum and developers and whatever to have their first look and consideration of the emerging neighbourhood local plan, which does then actually help inform the continuation of the delivery of the revised Torquay neighbourhood plan. So I am supportive of it. The housing numbers are always going to be a challenge when you have such constraints as we do in Torbay. And I've always referred to that big blue thing that runs down one side of the bay where we get our name from, which makes it really restrictive. And then, of course, we have the valuable green spaces around Torbay, and that is why the brownfield approach, brownfield first approach is so critical. So I'll be looking forward to seeing the responses over the coming weeks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to share a phrase that I once heard a judge use, and that was that sometimes recollections can vary. I think my recollection of that vote differs somewhat from what Councillor Long shared, but recognising that on planning matters, the council is always non-partisan on political grounds. We show that through the planning committee. I think again on this working party, I think we've displayed that, and so I would again share the positive comments about the collaborative party working that's taken place on all sides by all members of the working party. I wanted to, if I could just draw out a little point that was buried in the detail of the document, and that's in the agenda papers on page 290. And if you see the delivery numbers there, we can see 1,000 homes being delivered against the Hotels to Homes project. Now, this is a project that this administration started, that Councillor Tyman has led, and translated into local plan terms, this means 1,000 homes will be able to come forward if we are able to demonstrate this through the Regulation 18, through the Regulation 19, and through the examination process. 1,000 homes will be able to come forward over the plan period through underutilised hotels that are not demonstrating clear contributions towards our local area, and thus avoiding building on greenfield sites. So what is 1,000 homes in quantum terms? Well, if we said that the Willows development was 30 dwellings per hectare and Great Park Phase 1 was 40 dwellings per hectare, and I think colleagues will all appreciate Great Park feels a little bit more built up and urbanised than perhaps the Willows development is. If we use the figures from Great Park's Phase 1 and translated 40 dwellings per hectare on 1,000 homes, we're somewhere in the order of 7 farmers' fields, 7 average size farmers' fields in Torbay, not needing to be built on because of work that we've led in this administration with the cross-party support that we've had. And I think that just is a really positive point to note in the context where we're also showing our community a document which for some in the community may show a level of building that they find disappointing in the context of the government targets. So I would commend the cross-party working that's been going on. Recognise that 400 is a much more realistic figure than the government's target of 900 plus, but also endorse the work that's buried in the detail of this document to try to accommodate as much development as possible on brownfield sites all across Torbay, whether that's regeneration of our town centres in Torquay, Paignton or Brixham. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll come back to Councillor Lewis to sum up now.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I don't think I was asked any questions, so I think everyone's in agreement, basically, and I think Councillor Fox, you're quite right. If we can find a few more brownfield sites, so much the better. Once we get through Regulation 18, and before we go to Regulation 19, perhaps we'll be able to have another look and squeeze out a few more, because as Councillor Billing says, for every one we have on brownfield site, it saves us having to put it on the greenfield site. So, Chairman, I would just say the recommendation as outlined, local plan 1, 2 and 3. Do you want me to read them out or no? So I hope that the Cabinet will support those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So we move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. And what perfect timing you've all brought to. Exactly 7 o'clock. We're going to take a 10-minute comfort break and we will return at 7:10. Thank you. Welcome back to this evening's Cabinet meeting, probably about halfway through the agenda this evening. There's certainly a lot for us to work our way through. Okay, we will move straight on to item 13, street lighting central management system and LED upgrade project. Hopefully we shall move straight across to Councillor Billings to give us the details, and then we'll come back to the table for a proposer and seconder to formally get it on the table. So, Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. Members have a full report set out at page 527 of the agenda papers, including a full business case at page 543. And before going into full detail, I'd just like to single out for particular praise the high quality of the officer work we have in front of us. I think as members will observe themselves, reading both the report and that full business case, the quality of the work in this agenda item is absolutely superb. So that's really to be applauded. And I'd single out those officers whose names appear on page 543 for special appreciation. So members, what effectively we have before us is a spend to save investment case related to street lighting, which has a financial payback period of 10 years. Equally importantly, we will also save 504 tonnes of carbon emissions each year. So the key details of the proposals are firstly, installing a Talenza centralised management system for our 14,794 streetlights, and then secondly, installing holophane LED lamps in the 23% or 3,431 streetlights that currently do not have LEDs, but rather rely on the older sodium lamps. The combination of these two factors means that Torbay Council will pay much lower electricity bills going forwards, and as I've previously set out, there'll be an equivalent saving in carbon emissions, which goes towards meeting this council's climate objectives. The recommendation is set out on page 528 and includes, firstly, the spending of 2.26 million to bring this project to fruition, and secondly, authorising the prudential borrowing to fund the expenditure. That was a very quick summary to try to speed your meeting of the tonight. Chair, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. And I'll invite Councillor Lewis to formally move the recommendation.
Yes, I'm very happy to formally recommend this. Recommend the. It's been a long night. Recommend the as outlined 3.1, 3.2. I would like to add that this is all part of the Climate Change Action Plan, and cutting down carbon emissions, which is actually in my portfolio as well. The lights are actually 11% of our carbon output in Torbay, so it's quite significant. And that footprint would be cut by half by doing this, taking this action. It is also, which I read in the report, but I didn't know, each light is different. Therefore, if you want to monitor the lighting in a street and maybe dim it to save carbon emissions, you have to send a man out or a woman out to physically go to that light and amend it. Whereas with this new system, it can be done virtually. So it really is a win-win situation. And as Councillor Billings says, there's a 10-year payback period. So once we get that payback, we've got the lights and we're up and running. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And dropped somewhat in your lap, but invite Councillor Bye to second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you always know that I'm more than happy to have something dropped in my lap, and that I'm the person to turn to when you've got a technical, detailed, technological, scientific report. Isn't it interesting? In the report title, it says LED, light emitting diode. I didn't know that's what LED stood for. Did anyone know that? So yes. I feel I've learned something this evening. But this whole business has been so eloquently explained by Councillor Billing in that happy knack he has of making things so very interesting. When we were in private session, that I'm only too pleased to support anything that is good for the environment and is good for the budget gets my support. So happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Shadow Cabinet member for this particular item is Councillor Fox. So we'll move to Councillor Fox first. Thank you, Councillor.
I've got no comments to make on what I've heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any comments or any debate? Councillor Long.
Thank you very much. Two very quick things. Firstly, I understand the report seems to suggest that the payback period is 12 years rather than 10. So if someone could shine a light on that and clarify it, it would be grateful. The second item is that Councillor George Darling has asked me to raise a concern that he has, which is that there are some heritage lights in the St Mary Church ward which are being removed as part of this project. However, some heritage lights that happen to be in Preston are being kept. And so I just wondered whether if someone could also clarify why there is a discrepancy between the treatment of those two sorts of lights in those two different wards, which are of course represented by two different parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, debate, comments? In which case we'll move back to Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. There were two questions there. Taking the first one first. In the full business case, there are three options presented. In the report, it's a recommendation that we use option 3. Depending on how the surplus is applied, the payback period changes. And by going with option 3 in the full business case, we get to a slightly lower payback period timescale. In other words, rather than reinvesting some surplus funds, we're using to pay back the prudential borrowing this is financed by. Turning to the second question in relation to lamp columns, this is a project in relation to lamps. In other words, the bulb that's inside the lamp column. This isn't a project in relation to the columns themselves, and so it's not clear to me where that concern that was articulated comes from in relation to this specific project. More generally, I am aware that across various community groups and through their ward councillors, there has been a request to have a different approach taken in relation to heritage lamp columns in conservation areas. I think it's important to note that none of the heritage lamp columns that we have in Torbay in any way date from the age of the conservation areas that they're situated within, because no column in Torbay is older than 65 years of age, and all of the conservation areas date in terms of the architectural styles of the properties which are reflected are much older than that. But nonetheless, I recognise that it's seen that heritage lamp columns are important, and that's why I'm bringing forward through the Road Network and Travel Working Party proposals to consider heritage lamp columns in conservation areas in a different way, and to introduce some policy guidance that thus far this council has never had. But that said, as I've reiterated, that has nothing to do with the matters we have before us, which relate to the lamp, or more specifically the bulb inside the column, not the column themselves. Hopefully that clarifies those two questions that were raised and allows me to expand on the very brief explanation I gave earlier, Chair. And I would just compliment the quality of this. If we think back in terms of carbon savings, finding a way of allowing us to slightly dim at different times of the night the very large number of lamps that we have around the bay, making a clear financial saving and a clear carbon saving of 504 tonnes. I think this is really an important project, and I endorse it to colleagues who are able to vote tonight in Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Billings. An extremely full answer, and I thank you for responding to both of those points in the detail that you have. So we will move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Move on to item 14, Licensing Act 2003. This is the proposed licensing statement of principles. In other words, our licensing policy, which will cover 2026 to 2031. Good evening, Councillor Tranter.
Thank you, Chair. So Section 5 of the Licensing Act 2003 requires a licensing authority to determine and publish a statement of its licensing policy at least once every 5 years. The policy must be published before it carries out any licensing functions under the 2003 Act. The licensing policy is a fundamental part of the decision-making process, and the local authority must have regard to its policy for each application. The policy also sets out the framework of what is expected of applicants and assists them in completing their operating schedule. The authority has reviewed its current policy, and a 6-week public consultation exercise was undertaken between the 18th of July to the 29th of August 25. The responses have been considered and the policy has been updated. As outlined in the report, there are a number of changes to the licensing policy, mainly updating and expanding on areas to provide clearer guidance to businesses on how they can make successful applications and prevent any negative impact on the 4 licensing objectives. Cabinet members therefore need to consider the report and approve the Licensing Act Statement of Principles 2026 to 2031 to take effect from the 7th of January 2026. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Boy.
Thank you, and I'm delighted to second this recommendation this evening, having read through the report and noted that there was extensive consultation in terms of the period for the consultation, but there weren't, in fact, very many consultation responses. Came in at a rate of about 2 a week, which I think probably indicates it isn't hugely contentious. But it is hugely important, and as the report says, having the appropriate licensing policies in place and the principles established ensures a safer, more vibrant Torbay. So I'm delighted to support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move across to the Shadow Cabinet Member, Councillor Douglas Dunbar, who's joining us online this evening. Councillor, any comments or questions from yourself?
No, I don't actually. I just agree with it, really. Yeah, I haven't got anything to say.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other comments? Any questions? In which case, I'll move back to Councillor Tranter. Anything to sum up?
No, thank you, Councillor Bye, for pointing out that there was about 2 responses per week for the consultation. And we do encourage the public to take part in our consultations so that they can have their say about what happens in the place that they live. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before I go to the vote, I can assure both councillors that in the consultation that we launched earlier this evening for the local plan, I'm certain we'll have a lot more than 2 per week. Okay, let's move to the vote then, please. All those, what's the word I'm looking for? Thank you very much. It's been a long night. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, dear, dear. Right. Item 15, we'll stay with Councillor Tranter, and proposals to remove or alter of existing and the creation of new Hackney Carriage Stands under the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976. Thank you, Councillor Tranter.
Thank you, Chair. This matter is regarding the request to approve the removal, amendment and the appointment of new Hackney Carriage Stands. Traffic regulation orders have been approved and the taxi ranks are in place. However, the council also need to approve these as Hackney Carriage Stands under the Section 63 of the Local Government Act 1976. This is so that licensing officers can take enforcement action for any offences committed under the Local Government Act 76 or Hackney Carriage bylaws on the new rank space which has been made available following the changes that have occurred to facilitate necessary public realm works in the area. To reject these proposals is not a viable option, as this will not allow the licensing officers to take enforcement action at these taxi ranks. As outlined in the report, very few objections were received, and these objections were also considered as part of the traffic regulation order consultation. The provision of these new and amended ranks are for the benefit of the travelling public and the taxi trade. The Paignton ranks provide 9 additional taxi rank spaces that can be used by any Hackney carriage compared to the private rank at Paignton Station, which requires a GWR permit to use the rank. Cabinet members therefore need to consider the report and approve the removal, amendment and new taxi stands as prescribed under the Section 63 of the Local Government Act 1976. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm happy to second this from the chair. One thing's for certain, if you get taxi ranks wrong, you certainly find out very, very quickly that they are wrong. That has not been the case with the changes that have already been put in place, and delighted to second this particular item. Let's move across to Shadow Cabinet Member Councillor Douglas Dunbar for any comments or questions that you may have.
No particular questions or support.
Thank you very much indeed. Any comments around the table? Councillor Law?
Yes, thank you. So, as you know, every stage, ward councillors and the neighbourhood forum have been given reassurances that the taxi rank on Vaughan Road and the pavement created on Carey Green, a registered green space, is a temporary measure. However, this proposal appears to make it permanent, and I've once again written to our Chief Executive and been given assurance that this is still just a temporary measure. So I want to get that on record tonight and confirmation that this is just a temporary measure. I understand that it has to be done to allow enforcement to take place on the rank, though I've not actually been made aware of any violations of the taxi rank by the drivers that would require enforcement, but I do understand the position taken by the council. Myself and the Neighbourhood Forum have both asked for this decision to be deferred to enable proper dialogue and consultation to take place, but we understand that the position outlined by our CEO, that this is to enable enforcement to occur. But I'd also like to say the number of objections is wholly irrelevant. It's what those objections contained and whether those objections were things that needed to be raised. Number is irrelevant. So we're not blockers, we're not seeking to block this, but we are seeking a solution that respects our heritage and our green spaces. And I've been asked to raise the following points on behalf of Dr. Horder, as he's currently away from the Bay. So Dr. Horder, on behalf of the Neighbourhood Forum, has submitted a letter to Councillor Tranter that he was hoping would have been acknowledged tonight. He asked me, in the failure of that acknowledgement, to just to say that it is essential that assurance is given that, number one, the taxi rank will be temporary, number two, the additional tarmac will be removed and the grass will be reinstated, and number three, a meeting will be arranged with officers, taxi operators and representatives of the Neighbourhood Forum to find a way forward for taxi ranks. We've been promised this on so many occasions and it has just not happened. And as for Fleet Walk, with all the issues and complaints that we get about delivery drivers, and that's weekly, Mandy Darling is online, she will confirm that, about Uber Eats, Deliveroo drivers, gosh, that's hard. It looks like we are now encouraging even more traffic into a pedestrian zone. As ward councillors, we struggle to see the logic in encouraging even more traffic into a pedestrian zone. Is it maybe simply time to abandon the pretense of Fleet Walk being a safe pedestrian area? Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from around the room? Okay, I'll come back into the Cabinet table and go to Councillor Lewis first.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Following on from Councillor Law, while the works were going on, we did have, I think it was 8 taxis on Kerry Green. That has now come down to 3, where we have them on the highway rather than taking that tarmac area of Kerry Green. I've been assured from officers that the tarmac will be taken away March, April of next year. Reluctant to do it now because clearly grass won't grow now, and that could become very muddy. Therefore, but they have given an assurance that it will be grassed over, if that's what you want, in April. On the 13th of August, I understand the team did email asking for feedback on what they wanted on Kerry Green and to have a meeting, etc. Nothing's happened since then, so the team are very happy to meet with the team are very happy to meet with the community down there, and or even better, for the community to feed in of what they see the future of Kerry Green. Is the taxi rank there permanent? Nothing is permanent. Taxi ranks can be taken away, they can be changed at any time. So at the moment, the way we see it, it's going through, it is permanent. We need to be able to enforce it, but at any time that taxi rank can be removed or changed. I think that's covered most of the points that Councillor Law brought up.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move back to Councillor Tranter to sum up.
Apologies. So the rank has had to be made permanent so that we can put the enforcement on it. It's a temporary, permanent site. It's we wanted to work in consultation with you guys to see whether you wanted the tarmac removed. We want to make sure that we're doing what you want. We want to work with you. If you want that removed, then that's what we're going to do. But there's no point putting grass in just yet. But we're very happy to work with you to see what we're going to do there. With regards to delivery drivers and Deliveroo, I've had a meeting about this today. There's a real issue with delivery drivers, particularly like every Deliveroo. A lot of these people are getting constant tickets. And apparently what's going on is these cars aren't always registered to the people that's driving them, so they're not really bothered about whether they get a ticket or not because the cars are disposable, and that's why they're generally little old bangers, and they just get rid of them and keep moving on. It's not generally the person that's doing the work that's actually registered and getting paid directly. So that's all very complicated. If there's a particular shop that this is happening outside of, we can address that shop. So near me on Brixham Road, it's happening outside the McDonald's all the time. So potentially we can contact McDonald's and try and put some responsibility onto them to get them to stop them parking on the double yellows. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm going to move to the vote. I would just like to say, obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about Deliveroo, about Fleet Walk, about grassy areas, but I just want to bring us back to what the recommendation is on this particular item this evening. It's for the removal, amendment and creation of the ranks that are before us this evening. That is, it's quite simple under the Local Government Act 1976, and that's what we'll be voting on. So all those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 16, which is the IRO annual report. Councillor Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what a lot of business we are getting through different kinds of important business, and this is the Independent Reviewing Service, IRO, annual report for 2024-2025. And it is a very positive report, and I'll start with the recommendation, which is that members of Cabinet endorse the Independent Reviewing Service, IRO, annual report 2024-2025 and the publication of this in accordance with the legislative requirements outlined above. Best practice is absolutely to bring a report of this nature to the Cabinet. Strictly, it is important that the Director of Children's Services has sight of it, that I, as lead member, have sight of it, and that it goes to the Corporate Parenting Board. And it will go to the Corporate Parenting Board almost certainly at the meeting in January. But best practice is that all the Council, through the Cabinet meeting, can have oversight or can have sight of this. If I read out very briefly, the report evaluates the effectiveness and impact of the Independent Reviewing Service. Independent reviewing officers play a key role in ensuring that care plans for children are progressed with a central focus on their needs, their ascertainable wishes and feelings, and what intervention and support is required to help children achieve their goals. In a nutshell, it is an independent kind of oversight for our cared for children to ensure that they have the best opportunities and support in place. It is, I would suggest, this for 2024-2025 is a very positive report. There are noted an increased number of reviews, over 800 reviews been undertaken in that year. At that time, against a slightly reducing number of children in care. So it's referring to the number of in care at the end of the year as being 280. Unfortunately, we know that it's slightly increased since then, but an increased number of reviews highlights the stability of the workforce and particularly the long-established head of service, and that has been a benefit to the service and building relationships and achieving expertise. There's been involvement, particular involvement, increasing involvement with our virtual school governing body. There's been a high rate of participation, so hearing the voice of children and young people who are in our care. So 90% of over fours are judged as having participated in their reviews, but the aspiration, that's an increase on previous years, but the aspiration is to increase that further, and young people are noted as being co-chairs in some of those independent reviews. The timeliness is 99%. Our target is 95%. We've got to 99%, so that I think is a huge, huge achievement. But there are challenges in terms of placements, and that is linked with the report that we'll come to next, which is our fostering report for the same year. So there is noting challenges there in terms of placement, but highlighting good outcomes for children as they leave care, highlighting the significant number of children who continue in staying put arrangements with their foster carers, or who have entered special guardianship arrangements, or have gone into adoption. So good outcomes for those children. One sort of negative point in the report for 2024-2025 is dentistry, and we've known at the Corporate Parenting Board when we've discussed access to dentistry for cared for children, and the visits have not been as they should. But in fairness, I think since the report we have had progress on that in commissioning a dentist in Paignton, and I think the possibility of another dentist. So although there was one negative point about dentistry in this report, we have actually managed to make progress on that. So this will go to the Corporate Parenting Board, but I very much hope that members will take note of what is a very positive support. We have a super team. I want to express my thanks and appreciation to the Independent Reviewing Officers team and the head of service. The stability is absolutely paying dividends, and they're doing a great job for our cared for children. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Seconded by Councillor Tyman this evening.
Yes, happy to second that. An excellent report, I feel.
Thank you very much indeed. Move across to Councillor Law. who's the Shadow Cabinet member.
Thank you. And as always, it's a really informative report. And I'd urge everyone to take a look through it. It's really well set out, gives a really good picture of our children, our services, and how we are meeting some of our statutory obligations to our children. The IRO is there to bring the voice of our children. And I'm going to repeat one thing that Councillor Bai said because it really stood out for me. And that's the bit about the report, the section on participation and the voice of the child, because it does say that 90% of our children, cared for children over the age of 4, participated in their review, which is really good. But what I like the most is that in the report it goes on to say that whilst this is an improvement on last year, there continues to be room for more improvement. And I love the fact that our IROs want nothing short of 100% for our children. Keep up the good work and the improvements, and I'd just like to put on record our gratitude and thanks for all the work that our IROs do. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any further comments? In which case I'll come back to Councillor Bai if you wish to sum up, sir.
I want to say thank you very much indeed to Councillor Law for her very positive contribution to the discussion and support for this. And absolutely, we must all say thank you to the Independent Reviewing Officers Service. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. In which case we shall move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bai, we'll stay with yourself as we move on to item 17, which is the Fostering Annual Report for this year, 24-25. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We went through this at some length just yesterday at the Children's Overview and Scrutiny Report. We had a pretty frank discussion because it does absolutely highlight the challenges that we are facing in terms of the recruitment and retention of our foster carers. I would like to say thank you to begin with for our fostering service, all those who work with and for our foster carers and the foster carers themselves. But the reality is we have not been able to recruit and retain foster carers in the way that we may well have wished to have done. We do some amazing activities, for example, the Train of Lights, for example, our Fair Play Day, absolutely working with businesses and other organisations to provide the support for our foster carers and the children who they look after for us as corporate parents. We launched at the beginning of the year, and I'm so sorry I wasn't able to attend because I was really rather unwell at the time, the Mockingbird initiative, the idea being to get support from a cluster, a constellation, I think they call it, of foster carers who can support each other. And although we have now got that up and running in Brixham, we want to look at how we can increase the support for some of our older children and to bring more foster carers on board and give them a feeling absolutely of support. So the report covers the year 2024-2025, finishing in March this year. At that time, we had approximately 280 children in care, and it lists the placements that we would have had for those children. But since then, we know that sadly, our numbers of children in care, in common with other councils up and down the country, has increased. So we're currently now just over 300, and the number of foster carers that we've managed to recruit and retain has not increased. If anything, it has gone slightly in the wrong direction. So the report for the year is a fairly positive report, but there absolutely are challenges in terms of placements for children who are in our care. If I was quick enough on the buttons, I would come to the recommendation, but I'm sure the recommendation is to endorse.
The Cabinet endorse
the fostering report 2024-2025. The recommendations or suggestions that came from Overview and Scrutiny yesterday was that we look at other areas through LGA contacts, for example, to see how they may increase how they have been successful, if they have been successful in recruitment of foster carers. That was the first one. And then my director, our director, not my director, our director of Children's Services is going to prompt me because she's much quicker on the buttons than I am. So absolutely, over your scrutiny, thank the fostering team and foster carers for their work supporting our cared for and care experienced children and young people, that the Director of Children's Services be requested to explore options to incentivise foster carers, particularly those who take on older children, to ensure that they can remain in placements longer, and that the Vice Chair and Chair be requested to contact the Local Government Association to ask for any examples of any successful fostering, swipe it out the way, fostering hubs, and to share that with the relevant officer. So the key thing is say thank you, to absolutely up our game in terms of recruitment and to see if we can improve our offer going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Move across to Councillor Jackie Thomas to second this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. And as ever, Councillor Bai has presented this in great detail, so happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Law.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this did go to Children's Overview and Scrutiny yesterday as Chair of Overview and Scrutiny. I shan't repeat the recommendations, but it was well received and we had a really in-depth discussion about the challenges and the successes of the services, because it's not all challenges, there are some successes within there. So and I'd like to take this opportunity to put on record our deepest gratitude and thanks to all of our foster carers. They're the heart of our corporate parenting offer. I can say with confidence that the challenges faced by our fostering service are the same as those faced by local authorities throughout the country. As you know, I do a lot of work with other local authorities around children's services, and what we're going through is very, very similar, which is why, as Councillor Bai alluded to, we were going to reach out through the LGA to see if there were any of the, it's not our fostering team, it's the South West Fostering Hub, because I asked the Overview and Scrutiny, have we seen any increase in applications since we've been a member of the South West Fostering Hub. It's quite new, and we haven't, and anecdotally I'm hearing back that we're not alone. They haven't been successful in other areas, so the point of that is to try and track down if we can learn from somewhere, because as you know, we're always up for learning from people who've managed to overcome a challenge that we've got. So yeah, I can say with confidence that our challenges are shared by fostering services throughout the country. We simply don't have enough of those amazing, ordinary people who get to make extraordinary difference to a young person's life. So I'd also like to use this opportunity to thank local businesses and attractions that support our foster carers with offers, discounts and experiences. I won't name them for fear of losing one of these wonderful people, leaving one of the wonderful people out. But if you are a local business and you'd like to become one of our community parents and would like to make an offer of support to our wonderful foster carers, please don't hesitate to get in touch with either myself or Councillor Bai as the lead member. And just, yeah, heartfelt thanks to our foster parents. They are absolutely wonderful people. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any comments, any further comments? Okay, move back into the room. Councillor Bai.
Once again, I'd like to say thank you very much indeed to Councillor Law for her kind words then. Once I remember asking the director, what could I do to make a difference as lead member for Children's Services? And immediately her response was to increase, do everything you can to recruit more foster carers. So I would say to everybody in the room tonight and everybody who is connected to the council who may be following this meeting, if you know anyone who can take on that role, that very challenging but ultimately, I would have thought, rewarding role of being a foster carer for one of our looked after children, to give them the home and stability and love which I would like to think every child in the Bay deserves, then please absolutely come forward and make that offer. And we will support you and to make the offer in Torbay as good as it can be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. Let's move directly to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you indeed. We move back now to item 6, which is the Torbay Council's proposal for local government reorganisation. And before Cabinet set out any proposal, I would like to invite Mrs. Bond to first outline the journey that we have been on so far in respect of local government reorganisation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, just wanted, as we say, to give a brief overview of the process to date and set out the process that will come after tonight and after Council on Thursday. So in terms of why are we here, why is this decision before Cabinet and Council? So in December last year, the government launched their devolution white paper. And the devolution white paper not only set out the government's proposals for devolution, but also in terms of local government reorganisation across the country. On the 5th of February this year, government formally gave their invitation to authorities within Devon to take part in local government reorganisation proposals. That invitation set out a number of requirements, as is set out on the screen for those at home, looking at achieving a single tier of local government, so removing the two-tier district and county council position, moving to unitary authorities across the entirety of geographic Devon, a requirement that what came thereafter was based upon sensible economic geographies, but importantly, and there's been talk tonight about housing needs, but proposals that enabled housing need to be better met. The consideration had to be supported by really robust evidence analysis and needed to set out the impact upon crucial services. Obviously, the last item talking about some of our children's services, but particularly adult social care children's services, were what government have wanted to ensure are covered fully within proposals as we move forward. So what have we been doing since that invitation letter in February? The first stage was to respond with interim proposals by the end of March, and that was to set out all of those proposals that were under consideration at that point. It was nothing further than that. And we got some interim feedback in May on that, and that really clearly set out for us and all other authorities the fact that the proposals as they come forward now can't be related to a single area of Devon. In our case, Torbay, the proposal has to cover the entire geography of Devon in terms of what local government reorganisation looks like across the whole. But since then, there's been significant, intense work that's taken place in terms of public engagement, public consultation, data collection, evidence gathering, collaboration across all Devon councils, both at an officer level and at a political level, and options development within the council. And there's been good engagement, excuse me, cross-party through the overview and scrutiny task and finish group. In terms of the community engagement, we undertook a survey in common with and a very similar survey to 10 of the 11 Devon councils, 1,430 responses with 64% in support remaining as it is. And there is a specific appendix. Thank you. Lisa's just going to give me some more water because I'm going to cough. Real support in terms of our financially stable position, responsive in delivering regeneration within the Bay. What we've seen in terms of common themes coming through all of the consultation across Devon was that Devon's residents, no matter where they've been based, have felt a really strong emotional and cultural connection to their area. and they want governance models that enable decisions to be made locally to them, and that was a theme, members, that came out throughout. We've certainly had significant external technical input and analysis to inform the proposals that are before you tonight, and have engaged our officers extensively within the council at all levels to ensure the internal expertise of our officers have also helped to inform the proposals. Thought it would be useful to set out visually the administration's preferred option that's being considered tonight. What this shows is Torbay on its existing boundaries, an Exeter-based unitary that has a population of 256,000, a Plymouth-based unitary with a population of circa 300,000, and a rural Devon coast and countryside authority with a population of 536. But important to be able to show it visually for all their members. The proposals that are in your packs and are available to the public are immense. Many pages there, and just thought it'd be useful just for ease of navigation for those looking at it. Part 1 describes the future of local government in Devon. Part 2 sets out the case for change. Part 3 sets out that high-level implementation plan. Now, in terms of next steps, we know that we have full council on Thursday that will make the decision as to what Torbay will submit. In terms of the timescale thereafter, we know that government are proposing to open statutory consultation. So this isn't consultation with all residents across Devon, it's statutory consultation. We know that it will be early to spring 2026, but we don't know anything more than that. But we do know that that consultation will close after elections are held in May of next year. Government will announce their decision by summer recess. We know summer recess is the 16th of July, so it will be at some point in the lead up to 16th of July when that decision will be announced by government, proceeding then in terms of autumn, the legislation to be laid. What we know is that there will be elections held in May 2027 to form shadow arrangements of any new unitary councils that are created, with the vesting day for those new councils to take place on the 1st of April 2028, which is the timescale members that government have given us. But hopefully just a useful scene setting in terms of why we're here, what government has asked for, and the work that has been undertaken.
Thank you very much indeed. To just explain how I intend to deal with this particular item, it will be proposed and seconded, and then I intend to ask each of the Cabinet members why they feel that this particular option is the best option for Torbay, and in particular, their particular portfolio. So I think it's worth to start off by saying that, you know, this has been a journey, and it's been a journey for all councillors, and not just councillors in Torbay, councillors and leaders from across the whole of Devon. And it's a pivotal moment for local government in Devon and for the future of the communities we all serve. Today, I want to set out clearly why the direction we are taking is the right one, rooted in good governance, common sense and a shared ambition across the whole of the Southwest region. At its heart, our approach is built on a simple principle: better services for residents delivered by councils specifically designed for the communities they serve. That means structures that reflect real places, real identities and the real needs of people across Devon. We all know that Devon is not one uniform place. Our urban centres, Torbay, Plymouth, Exeter are the economic engines that drive growth, innovation and opportunity. Their success supports jobs, investment and prosperity across the whole of the peninsula. Equally, our rural and coastal areas thrive when they have councils that understand their challenges, connectivity, geography, housing and access to vital services. A four-unitary model delivers both. It provides the scale where it is needed and the local focus where it matters. And crucially, it creates the right foundation for the next stage of devolution. Because, let me be very clear, the leaders of every council in Devon, county, unitary and district, are united in their support for a South West Peninsula mayoral strategic authority. That shared commitment is significant. It demonstrates that this is not about institutional self-interest, it's about unlocking deeper devolution for our entire region. We already have a strong start with the Devon and Torbay Combined County Authority. A mayoral strategic authority builds on that progress, giving us greater control over skills, transport, housing and the long-term decisions that shape our area for decades to come. The model we are putting forward provides a better balance between the constituent authorities of a Devon Mayoral Strategic Authority. With sensible population ratios, each partner will sit at the table as an equal. That is essential if we are to secure the strongest possible deal for our residents. But this isn't change for the sake of change. It's about shaping a structure that works, one that delivers better outcomes for people, strengthens our local economies, and ensures that every community, urban or rural, benefits from this opportunity. So it is a pivotal moment, and I'm proud that Torbay is playing a leading role in shaping a future that I believe is fair, balanced, and genuinely focused on the residents we all serve. I'm happy to move the recommendation 3.1, 3.2, 3.3 as written out in the report, and I invite Councillor Lewis to second the proposal.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I don't intend to give a long speech because it goes to full council on Thursday, where I will share my thoughts. But I would like to thank Councillor Thomas in particular for all the hard work you've done over the last 12 months. I know that you've communicated, met, virtually it seems like on a daily basis, the leaders of all the councils in Devon. So not only Plymouth, Exeter and County, but also all the districts, and work really hard to come up with a scheme that you think works for Torbay. I'd also like to thank the officers and Anne-Marie, who again has been talking to the chief executives of all those councils as well, and the rest of the team who have worked tirelessly, because it is an important issue. It's the long-term future of Torbay and the rest of Devon. What I will say is I listened to the debate on the from Devon County, where they proposed their new Devon scheme, which is the whole of Devon less Plymouth and Torbay. And I'd like to thank them for leaving Torbay out. I think that's good, and thanks has to go to Councillor Long for really arranging that. I think in the past they were going to put Torbay in with the whole of Devon. So we already have, and I think that went through their cabinet this afternoon. So on the table, we already have Torbay first, which cross-party, we all agreed that that's what we wanted, Torbay first. So we've got that. We can bank that, if you like, that we've got the new Devon scheme, which puts Torbay first. Therefore, in my view, we ought to look at what we've done, what our proposal is, with the Exeter, Plymouth, the rural part of Devon, and Torbay, so four unitaries. And we don't know what the government, what the minister is going to do, which ones he's going to pick. But at the moment, we've got one on the table. If we have two on the table, showing that Torbay can survive on its own and survive well on its own, and Torbay first, then out of the four options that will be going to government, two of them will include Torbay first. And to me, that's the most important thing going forward, is that we are Torbay first. I think the other schemes can work. There are some differences, as we all know, but I think the scheme that we're putting forward is the scheme that I think would be the best scheme for Torbay and for the rest of Devon. I will have more thoughts on Thursday that I can share, but briefly, I would just hope that people support that having two schemes on the table is better than having one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Timon.
Thank you very much for asking me to go first. I would like to start by talking about finance in the context of this proposal. And I'm not going to say a great deal about it. For the first point is that our proposal is that Torbay will remain unchanged. Therefore, of all the authorities and all the areas in Devon, Torbay will be the area that will have least change to its finances. In lots of ways, that will enable us to continue what is a very successful path over recent years in terms of managing our resources, making advances, and being remarkably financially secure. And I say that in the context of the dire stories that one hears about many councils throughout the rest of the country. However, we need to consider in this report the situation of the financial impact across the whole of Devon, not just upon ourselves. And I think it's gratifying to see in the report in front of us that the financial savings that can be made, and I put the words can be made, by authorities through these changes, predominantly, I believe, as a result of removing the two-tier aspect across much of the county, that those would leave all the configurations that we are seeing in the proposals that we're ending up putting forward, not only from Torbay, but from the other authorities. They all seem to leave councils which will be financially viable. That, I think, is important. However, I'll move on from talking about finance because I don't think finance is the thing that is actually driving our choices here, predominantly about what is best for Torbay and what is best for the rest of Devon. If it was purely finance that was driving us forward, we might, any of us around Devon, might be coming up with different results, different motivations and different proposals. This is about far more than just finance. And I'll pick the other part of my portfolio, housing, to perhaps explain a little bit of that. There is no doubt that the housing needs across the urban areas in Devon are substantially different than they are across the rural areas. I think we all have some of the same fundamental needs about needing affordable housing, needing to be able to attract young people to remain in the areas, and be able to feel that they can live satisfactory, work working lives in Devon, and bring up their families to a reasonable standard of living. So many of the issues are the same, but the solutions are fundamentally different. And I think we're finding that there. And it's one of the potential downsides of a local government reorganisation, to move away from focused areas that you've got in housing delivery within the districts and within the existing unitaries, to move to a smaller number of areas. One thing I'm quite clear about is over the past 2 years where I've been portfolio holder for housing, is being able to focus on the needs of Torbay and not worry about the needs of Exeter or Plymouth or the rural areas around us, has allowed me to see what needs to be done to bring forward delivery and make the step change that we've referred to earlier this evening in terms of looking at the local plan, the contribution of our accommodation repurposing project, the use of brownfield sites to try and not have to use brownfield sites. I just wonder whether I would have been able to do that if I'd had a portfolio that covered all those other parts of Devon and was having to concentrate on that. And if that had removed my focus, it would equally remove the focus of our officer team involved in housing delivery. In housing, there are strategic things that we need to do over a wide area. And absolutely, the Combined County Authority, or the hopefully future mayoral strategic authority, will take on those responsibilities. That's part of the remit of that body, or those bodies across the whole of the nation. The strategic housing, the dealing with infrastructure needs, the negotiations with government to get funding in, but delivery wants to be based upon people who know their community, know the issues, and frankly, Torbay remaining as it is perfect to that. Plymouth remaining broadly as it is, or broadly as it is enabling that to happen. I think that's also one of the key reasons what I would actually support Exeter becoming a unitary authority and not being part of a wider Devon, because its urban needs of housing are different from rural Devon. It needs a focus. It has that today in its city council. It needs to retain that by being able to remain focused on the local housing needs. I've talked about, therefore, I think the need to remain local in terms of housing. I think some of my colleagues around the table will come up with exactly the same sort of concept on other areas. So I've said enough.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Jackie Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to also start by thanking everyone who have spent months putting this local government reorganisation proposal together. Our officers have worked extremely hard, both within the council and alongside partners, stakeholders and other Devon councils. Our aim in Torbay, it's simple. It's to keep delivering for local people and to continue putting residents at the heart of everything we do. We also want any changes across Devon to work for every community. We've based our plan on what residents told us was important to them. People across Devon said they value strong connections to their local areas. They don't want large, centralised councils that feel distant or disconnected, and they want decisions to be made as locally as possible. They also told us they want to protect the rural and coastal character of their towns and villages. The proposal reflects all of these views. For Torbay, residents were clear that they want us to keep our current boundaries and continue focusing on the needs of local people. For the wider county, this proposal keeps local identity and local decision-making at the heart of how services are run. Across the new councils, the number of councillors would look a little like this. Devon, Rural Coast and Countryside would have around 70 to 100 councillors. Plymouth and Exeter would each have around 60 to 75 councillors. Torbay remains at 36 councillors as set out in the 2017 review. Under this proposal, nothing changes for Torbay in how democracy works or how residents have their say. For the rest of Devon, we are waiting for the government's new Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill, which will set out how local neighbourhoods will gain more influence. We've made sure this proposal gives a strong foundation so communities across Devon can continue to have a real voice in a unitary system that puts local identity and local needs first. I fully support this proposal as the right and sustainable way forward for Devon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Tranter.
Thank you, Chair. It is important that I set out why Torbay's position as a continuing authority within the proposed unitary structure is critical for the people that we serve. Adult social care is not just a service, it's a lifeline for thousands of residents. Maintaining Torbay as a continuing authority ensures that we preserve the deep local knowledge, trusted relationships and integrated systems that underpin our care delivery. We know that our integrated care system provides good services and better outcomes for our residents, and we believe our system is a replicable blueprint for place-based adult social care across the country, and to this end we are supporting the Casey Commission in their work on the implementation of the National Care Service. The unitary approach offers the best of both worlds, enabling strong collaboration across equal partners in Devon for strategic challenges, while safeguarding Torbay's ability to design and deliver services tailored to our unique community needs. That's why I believe that the unitary approach that Torbay is proposing is the right solution for our residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And whatever did we have to talk about before we had local government reorganisation dropped on us? And I want to add my thanks to you, for you, and professional colleagues for all that you have done with this. I mean, the extraordinary amount of engagement, not just in our local community. I think we've had more extensive engagement in the Bay than has happened in some other authorities, but your engagement with other authorities, but also just getting on with the day job, and absolutely professional colleagues getting on with their day jobs when their jobs are subject to a question mark due to local government reorganisation. You know, it could have been a massive distraction, but we have embraced the process and we've got on with doing what we do best, which is delivering for the people of Torbay. I guess there was some worry that and I wanted to also say thank you to you for allowing me some dispensation to occasionally express personal views on what I think are the best future arrangements in Devon. And we haven't fallen out, and we won't fall out. But I am now on side as for the options that are on the table. This to me does seem to be the best way forward. And just in case I think colleagues thought I might go off-piste this evening, something was drafted for me, which I'm going to read out as well as I can, and it relating to children's services. I think we need to be pretty grown up about this. I mean, I think you can't argue whether you're part of a bigger one or a smaller one, or we stay as we are. You can argue on both sides. I think there are strengths on both sides of being in a new large authority, and strength as we are. But never let it be forgotten that we got to good from inadequate as we are on these boundaries as Torbay, and absolutely proud to be Torbay. So the government is clear that children's services should be delivered within localities. This proposal is based on sensible geographies which reflect how people live and work, meaning that locality working has a sound foundation. Service responses will be able to address distinct local needs. Those are the words drafted for me. In my own words, as a small unitary authority, we know our children. And I think the risk of being part of a much larger authority, although there are things through economies of scale, highlighting challenges already this evening, there are certain pluses. But as a small unitary authority, absolutely, we know our children and can work in a locality basis. In the 2 and a bit years that I've been lead member for Children's Services, on the numerous occasions I have been to our Director of Children with cases, there has never been a time. And I think if you are a director, if you are a lead member for Children's Services and you stumble across something, you think, and then you go off to the director and the director says, I've never heard of that child, I've never heard of that family, oh my goodness. That's when alarm bells would ring. There has never been a time when I've been to Nancy Meehan and colleagues with an issue and a concern when she hasn't known immediately and hasn't been immediately able to reassure me that that child is on the radar, that child has the support in place, and that we're doing everything we can. I think the only time with one case in 2.5 years that was for a SEND individual, and it turned out that the individual was past the age of being in the sort of system that they would like to have been in. So but immediately I was told that was the case. So we know our children. I think the risk if you go to a big authority is that you might lose that. You might lose that opportunity to work in a locality basis. The general picture, I think, is absolutely right. As we, as an urban area, should support Exeter in its ambitions to be its own unitary authority on an expanded boundary compared to the present Exeter City Council. So that is why I support this particular option, and absolutely it's what the people through the extensive consultation said that they wanted. They wanted Torbay to stay as it is. And my preference is to support Exeter with their ambitions and to support Plymouth to expand into their growth area as well. So the 3 urban areas, the economic powerhouses of Devon, Plymouth, Exeter and Torbay, I want to see us working closely together and accepting that the more rural coastal areas of the small towns and the villages have perhaps a different agenda, different priorities, and that I wish them success. But goodness me, I think they will face challenges, but I wish them success in their ambition to be a separate unitary authority. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That just leaves Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just touch on a couple of concepts. The first is a word that was very popular previously, and that was localism. Now, I believe at various points, all 3 large political parties that we used to have, the Conservative Party, the Liberal Democrat Party, and the Labour Party, have all variously identified with that phrase. I think in various manifesto literature, all 3 parties probably claimed that localism was their idea. Clearly, Chair, it was a Conservative idea, but we'll leave that as a aside. And what does that mean? What does localism mean? It means local people have the say in their area. It embodies the broad concept that runs underneath our governmental system, which is a central body cannot be all-seeing and all-knowing and determine for different communities what is best for them in their area, but rather it allows those individual communities to be empowered to reach their own decisions decisions that are best for them in their unique circumstances. I'd then like to touch on the concept of how it's important to match service delivery with need, and how there's clearly differences in need between an urban area and a rural area. Let's just take the idea of bin collections. Bin collections in a rural area are clearly very challenging. The bin lorry has to go for great distances to collect between individual properties, whereas in the urban area, it might only have to travel a metre between individual properties, and therefore the types of service provision are fundamentally different. Conversely, in relation to highways maintenance, where current government systems give local authorities money per linear metre of road, an urban area where the road is used by buses, commercial vehicles, regularly dug up by utility companies, and got very high traffic demands, they're penalised. Whereas a rural area, where they might have great long rural roads driven along perhaps by a tractor once a day, they're fundamentally advantaged because they're still getting government money per linear metre of road. So for those two distinct authority types, the way they will match service delivery with their need will be fundamentally different. And I hadn't got it in my note, but again, one of my colleagues pointed it out earlier. We might need satellite operations. For example, if we needed one for Torquay in an urban area, fundamentally we'd need satellite operations in a widely distributed rural area for our waste collection operations. And as I would have come on to say, had the connection not failed us, we didn't need that in Torbay. So taking those two concepts of localism and matching service delivery to need, it's through that lens that I've assessed the different options. Now, I don't feel it's right for me sitting in Torbay to tell the people of Exeter that they can't realise their vision of having a unitary authority representing Exeter and advocating for them in their unique way. I appreciate other members have different views, but I don't share them. And if other members can explain to me why they think it is for people of Devon as a whole to tell people of Exeter what's best for them, I'd be delighted to hear that. Then when it comes to matching service delivery to need, I've already touched on how it's different from an urban and rural area. And let me translate that into specific consequences that has for the people of Torbay. Councillor Lewis, on his way home tonight to Preston, may decide to use the dual carriageway, and he may use the roundabout at the top of Preston Down Road on his way home. And he may note how bad the tarmac is around that roundabout. That roundabout is located within Devon County. Why is that tarmac particularly bad? Because Devon County have determined the way they address potholes for the whole of Devon, including rural areas and urban areas, is done on a rules-based system. We in Torbay have determined it's done on a risk-based system. So where you have, for example, a pothole in a wheel track, we've determined for our area that gets priority if it's on a regularly used route, such as an A road. Now, that's not how Devon County look at it. Now, I think putting these two broad concepts together, matching service delivery with need, and that localism, which all main previous political parties used to advocate for, I think what we have before us in relation to a 4 unitary model, picking up the 3 main urban centres, and also then having a further unitary authority, reflecting what's best for the rural area, is the preferred way forward. I simply do not agree that that 4th unitary authority, the one that represents the rural area, is unviable. That's the position that I've heard other colleagues advocate for. It's not what's shown in the information before us. And from information in my portfolio, it's not correct. I've just previously explained you get money for road per linear metre of road. And that's why, for example, Devon County has, in relation to its traffic lights, 100% of its traffic lights are covered by LEDs for Councillor By, that's the light emitting diode, whereas in Torbay only 5% are. So if areas within my portfolio are so fundamentally more viable, and we are going to conclude as an authority that that rural area is less viable, there need to be really compelling reasons in other portfolio areas, and they simply have not been presented, and those concerns are not congruent with the detailed officer information we have before us. I'm sure, Chair, I could go on, but recognising the evening is drawing late, and we all want our dinner, I'll leave it there and pick this up on Thursday night.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I was wondering whether I was going to be going around that roundabout today or tomorrow. Very precise, Councillor Billings. Well done. Devon as a whole has enormous economic potential, and we need to be part of that growth. We need to be part of the potential that is there and probably hasn't been tapped into, had the full potential it could have. And I think our proposal provides that potential. And as the Chairman said, it's just the start of the journey, and when we get the mayoral system above it, a lot of the things that we've discussed today, Councillor Tymon, the housing, transport, will be as it is at the moment. Some of those being dealt with by the CCA, but they will be taken over by the mayoral system. And I think all councils are supportive of that going forward. I'm going to be brief, and I'm just going to say this. Over the past 2 to 3 years, we've got over £100 million from government for economic regeneration. If we weren't on our own, I don't think that money would have come forward. We have put a very, very good case for Torbay that we need that regeneration. We are a deprived area. If you take the whole of Devon, when I was on the RDA, the European fund was taken as the whole of Devon. Therefore, we didn't get the funding that Cornwall got. Cornwall got the money because they were seen as a deprived area and needed help. Because Torbay was taken in with Devon, we got very little money at that time. And it's only recently that government have seen that Torbay needs help, and we got that 100 million. If we were in with Devon or anyone else, I think we would struggle to get the support we've had over the past 2 to 3 years. And that's why I think it should be Torbay first. As I said in my opening remarks, we're all in agreement that it should be Torbay first. Let's have 2 bites of the cherry. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's open this up now to members outside of the Cabinet. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I understand that the proposal before us tonight is called Together for Devon. And I wonder whether you were being ironic, Mr. Chairman, when you put that title to the report, because you haven't been able to keep Torbay together on this item, let alone the rest of Devon. It should be entitled Undermining Devon. The Liberal Democrat group have been consistent throughout the last 11 months in arguing that Torbay should remain as it is, Torbay first, if you like. Conversely, the Conservative group have been on quite the roller coaster of a journey over the last 11 months. I think I understand that agreeing to literally almost every proposal that has been before us throughout the process. But I'm glad that the Conservative group, have eventually agreed with the Liberal Democrats that Torbay should be remaining as it is. Despite that agreement, the Lib Dem group disagree with the model that is being proposed before us tonight. Torbay's voice is going to be confused under this proposal due to Plymouth and Exeter also proposing a 4-unitary model, proposing a different vision for Torbay, a larger one, and this undermines Torbay. Because one of the reasons, and I'll go into more detail on Thursday, but one of the reasons that we have argued for Torbay to stay as it is to protect our integrated care organisation. A larger boundary, which is what Plymouth and Exeter are arguing, would result in the breakup of that ICO. I very much argue that the Labour leadership of both Plymouth and Exeter have taken the leader of Torbay Council for an absolute ride, because we are backing their proposals, but they are not backing ours, and that leaves Torbay on its own. The 4-unitary model also consigns Devon to a rural and coastal future, and one of a financial basket case. That is because whilst the data before us takes into account of their income, it does not take into account their need, for example, on public health and children. And I'm sure that their professional officers will be interested to hear the mansplaining from the member for Churton with Gampton this evening. It is very much my view, and I haven't always agreed with the Labour leader of Devon County Council. In fact, I've had some quite frank views about him expressed before, but I believe that this proposal before us, the 4-unitary model, is a Labour and Conservative conspiracy to undermine a Liberal Democrat-run administration at Devon County Council. It is interesting that I predicted that there would be no mention of the Police and Crime Commissioner this evening on this item, even though she was mentioned before. And I've not agreed with her on many times. But she has provided a letter to Devon County Council agreeing with the model that's being put forward by Devon County Council. I never thought I'd say this, but I agree with the Police and Crime Commissioner. And I think that the civil servants who will be reading all the various local government submissions, it is my view that they will be recommending to government the Devon County Council model. I will be going into more detail about this on Thursday night and giving more detail about why I'm saying what I'm saying this evening. So I look forward to that debate on Thursday evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move to the virtual room. Plenty of councillors in the virtual room. Any comments from any of the councillors? I think they're holding fire until Thursday evening. So can I just check that everyone's had a say? Who wants a say in the room? Okay, so we will bring that back into the cabinet. I think I'll probably just pick up on one or two of the issues that were raised. And the first one was about the leader of Torbay agreeing with every authority. I think what I can certainly be accused of is having engaged with every single authority across Devon. Absolutely. I've explained at every meeting about Torbay's position, where it is, but after saying that, we have absolutely engaged. We have shared data. We wouldn't get to a position regarding, and I thought that's why it was really important for me to be clear, and I will emphasise it again, what I said earlier, that the leaders of every council in Devon, county, unitary and district, are united in their support for a South West Peninsula Mayoral Strategic Authority. Now, the reality is, the only reason that leaders got to that single position was because everybody worked constructively together. If they felt that Dave Thomas from Torbay had agreed with everybody's proposal and then suddenly walked away from them, we would not be having that agreement. There has been a huge amount of work done across the whole of Devon, and that absolutely has to be recognised. And the reality is, when a year ago, when this process started, I think we all believed that there may be 15 different proposals presented to government by the 28th of November. The fact that we are down to, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4 different proposals that will be proposed to government by the 28th of November that I know of, and there may be some surprises, there may be 5, I don't know. I think that's a huge testament to the amount of effort and working together that has actually gone into this. And also, I would take issue with the comment of a confused picture with Plymouth and Exeter. No, we are Plymouth, Exeter and Torbay are supporting a 4 unitary authority. I think really what has been key, and I think what was really interesting, and I was pleased to hear it from the cabinet members. There wasn't a political descriptor in here. It was all about we're doing what we're doing for our residents. And the crazy thing is, we are all supportive of Torbay to actually to be as it is. The great thing is that Torbay staying on its own from Devon is a banker. That's been approved by their cabinet today. So that's the first one on the table that shows Torbay. So if government choose that, Torbay will be staying on its own. So let's give government a second option to choose Torbay. Not what I just don't see the merits. But look, we are drifting into a lot more debate that we'll have on Thursday evening, clearly now. But the only way we can get the debate going on Thursday evening is for Cabinet to formally approve the recommendation that we have on the table. Councillor Billings, you're a little late after my summation, but I'll allow you to speak.
That's very charitable, Chair. I must have misheard with the with whatever I've got not being very well must have affected my airways, but I didn't hear any cogent reasons as to why the points I was advocating earlier were wrong. And I would just invite colleagues that have different views to tender those on Thursday, recognising we're running this debate. I heard a comment, I believe, related to my gender. I didn't think the relevance of that for this debate, and I just think it would be really helpful to hear in clear terms why the points I was advocating are considered to be wrong, because that would help me form my own views, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So let's move to the vote. The recommendation 3.1, 3.2, 3.3 is in the papers. We've discussed it at reasonable length. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. We move on to the final item on this evening's agenda, which is an urgent item, item 4A. Sorry, my apologies. Item 4B, the nomination to list Plainmoor Football Stadium as an asset of community value. Councillor Jackie Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So this item relates to the nomination to relist Plainmoor Football Stadium as an asset of community value. The stadium is currently on our register, but the previous 5-year listing expired on the 31st of March 2025. So a new nomination has been submitted. Our role tonight is simply to decide whether Plainmoor still meets the legal criteria under the Localism Act 2011. Officers have reviewed the application and advised that it does, and it should be approved. Plainmoor was successfully listed in 2015 and again in 2020. This new nomination would extend that to 2030. The council owns the freehold and Torquay United hold a long lease until 2081. To meet the legal test, the stadium must currently be used in a way that benefits the community, and it must be realistic that this use will continue for the next 5 years. Nothing has changed since the last listing. The ground is still actively used by Torquay United, and it remains an important community hub. And its attendance has also risen in recent years. We have a valid nomination. The alternative to approval would be refusal, but a national practice is clear. Sports grounds, even when run commercially, can be listed because of their wider social and cultural value. That applies here. Given the continued community use of Plainmoor, refusal would not be appropriate, and the recommendation is to approve this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tranter.
Thank you, Chair. This is a legal process, and if officers assess that it meets the threshold, we have to approve it, so I second it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Shadow Cabinet Member is Councillor Madison. She's not with us. Councillor Long, anything to comment?
Just supportive, and I very much hope the council will be working with the communities of Brixham and also Clifton with Maidenway so that the community can take over those assets as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And both of those will be discussed on the 16th of December. Okay, so just for reference then, the recommendation is that Plainmoor Football Stadium be relisted on the Council's Register of Assets of Community Value for a further 5-year period commencing from the 15th of September 2025. My apologies, Councillor Thomas, I should have come to you to see if you wanted to summate.
No, I think I've put everything in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, in which case we'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And at 20:46, this meeting is closed. Thank you.